Okay, so in Math 1, you probably talked about a couple of different ways to solve quadratic. So you probably solved by factoring, and hopefully you did quadratic formula and maybe some other kinds of methods. But we aren't really focused on factoring, yay. So we're just going to solve all of them with the quadratic formula. So let's talk about quadratic formula. So the first thing that you need for your quadratic formula is for it to be in standard form, which is like what we talked about on Friday. So standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So you want the whole thing to equal 0. So then to solve them, you're going to plug into the quadratic formula and then you simplify it. So the quadratic formula is x equals. Does anybody remember? Negative b. Plus or minus? Good. Plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So, A, B, and C all come from the standard form. So wherever you see an A, you're going to plug in whatever your first coefficient is. Wherever you see a B, you're going to plug in the B, and then the C just has one place there. It's not as important. Let's do one. So let's say we have x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Okay, so if it helps you, you can list out A, B, and C. So A is the number in front of x squared. What's in front of this x squared? 1. Good. So you always have an invisible 1. So if there's nothing there, there's a 1. So B is always in front of the x. What's in front of the x? Good. 4. And then C is a number by itself, which is... Good, negative 12. So if it's minus, you have to bring that sign with it. Any questions on getting A, B, or C? Okay, so then you just plug them into the formula. So x equals negative b, so negative 4 plus or minus the square root and then we do b squared minus 4, a, which is 1, c is negative 12, all over 2 times a, which again is 1. This 4? It's always 4. Yeah. Any questions plugging it in? Okay, so then we simplify each little piece. So the first thing I have is this -4. Well, I can't simplify that -4, so I just bring it over. Plus or minus the square root. Now, in your calculator, you type just what's underneath the square root, not the square root itself, just what's underneath. So, 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times -12. Okay, so you don't type the square root itself. This one, it comes out nicely, but that'll give you a decimal. So just what's underneath. And we get 64. And then it's all over 2 times 1. Good. Questions? Okay. So sometimes when you get to this step, you're done. But that all depends on the square root. So if I look at the square root of 64, do I know the square root of 64? 8. Good. So we can simplify this one even more. So I'll bring it over -4 plus or minus. But now again, the square root of 64 is 8 divided by 2. So anytime that you're solving a quadratic, most of the time you're going to have 2 answers. So to get those 2 answers, you use the plus and you use the minus. So now we're going to split this up to where we have -4 plus 8 divided by 2 and -4 minus 8 divided by 2. And then you just simplify. So -4 plus 8 is 4 divided by 2 is 2. So one of our answers is 2. And then -4 minus 8 is -12 divided by 2 is -6. So those are our 2 answers. Questions? So let's say we had 2x squared plus 5x equals 4. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is make sure that this equals 0. It does not. It equals 4. So the first thing you want to do is move that 4 over there to the left. So since it's positive, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So then we get 2x squared plus 5x minus 4 equals 0. Questions? So that's always your first step. If it doesn't equal 0, make it equal 0. Then we can find our A, B, and C. So what does A equal? 2. Good. So whatever's in front of the x squared is your A. How about B? 5. And C? Good. Any questions on that, ABC? Alright, so now let's plug it in. So we have negative B, so -5 plus or minus the square root B squared minus 4. A is 2, C is negative 4. All over 2 times A. Any questions plugging it in? Alright, so now we go through and we simplify each little piece. So we have negative 5, well that doesn't change yet. So negative 5 plus or minus the square root. So then again, in our calculator, we type in just what's underneath, not the square root itself. So 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 4. And we get 57. And then it's all divided by 2 times 2 is 4. Questions? Okay. So now, again, we might be done, but that all depends on the square root. So if I look at 57, is 57 a perfect square? No. So if I type in 57, I get a decimal. So we might have to break it down like how we did the others. So we could put the 57 in a little bracket. And then we can start simplifying. So let's see if 2 goes into 57. No. How about 3? Yes. So 3 and 19. Well, what do I know about 19? It's prime. We wrote it over here on our list. So that means all I can say is 19 and 1. Do I have any pairs? No, I just have 19 and 3. So even though we can break it down, we can't necessarily simplify it anymore because we don't have any pairs. So this is it. Questions? Okay. Alright, we'll stop there.